get started, shall we?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, what's going on, MC? It's been a long time.
Yes, it has. I actually did just go live, by the way. I apologize for going live early.
Oh, hey, everybody.
This is Bear Dog, a long time uh, companion of the channel. How's that, for lack of a
Yeah,
better
we've
term?
we've been friends 8 years now.
Yeah, yeah. Way back in the day with the old guard with Ogre and that crowd way back when.
Oof, gosh, that's a name I haven't heard in a minute. Whoa,
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it, to be honest.
who
I mean,
knows?
once in a while I'll see certain people come up on on Twitter when I view Twitter. I've made it a point to try and avoid Twitter for the most part.
Oh yeah, I don't even have a Twitter account anymore. Like I got rid of that 2 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that.
It hasn't changed.
Yeah, it's just gonna get worse before it gets better. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's nonsensical
That's for
that
sure.
goes on. It's well, for example, you and I. Well, for people who don't know, Bear Dog and I are friends, but we don't agree on a lot of things. All right, but that doesn't
Yep.
mean, all right, we can't be friends. It doesn't mean that just because we're not aligned in a lot of issues, okay, all right, that we can't talk civilly to one another. All right, even if our disagreements are vociferous, and she teases me about the old man yelling at clouds, which
Yes.
I resemble that. I'm not gonna. I don't resent it at all. From the last time you've been on, I mean, several things have changed. Unfortunately, I don't know if you were around when we had our previous dog. We had a dog for about, I would say, 3 months, 4 months, and unfortunately, the dog got hit by a car. All right,
Oh man, that's the worst.
and died. It was it, my daughter had decided which dog to get, and she got a dog that was deaf. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, which I mean, that's okay, but the thing is you can't call the dog. You
Yeah.
can't call her back, and it happened that my wife was out, went out the back gate to throw out trash, and the gate didn't shut all the way because sometimes the latch would catch a little bit, and it got out. And of course, my wife was trying to get the dog, right? But the dog thought it was a game, all right?
Yeah.
And you got to get the dog to come to you, which is with that dog, the only way to get it to come to you is to look at it and then start walking back the other way, and then it'll run back to you. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, my wife was chasing the dog, and the dog was busy looking back at her, thinking it's a game, and ran right into a car. It was sad.
Man,
So
I'm so sorry.
we were dogless for several years, and then my daughters have both moved out, and about they're about a mile away. They didn't go too
I mean,
far.
that's good.
They got a house together, which they're on they're on separate schedules basically. My youngest daughter works at a resort and as a cook, and she has really weird hours, right?
Yeah.
My older daughter works as an accountant, right? So she has the standard 8 to 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So they have odd hours, of course, which leads them to annoy one another at every opportunity. And of course, their personalities are completely different and so forth. But they decided that my youngest daughter wanted to have another dog again, right? So they went to a dog and I said, "Don't get a large dog." And the reason isn't because I can't handle large dogs. The reason is because you can't. A large dog in a city doesn't work.
Nope.
And of course, my youngest son on Christmas decided to buy them a dog.
Yeah.
So over Christmas, he went out, picked up a dog. He got a black lab beagle mix,
That's a hell of a mix.
and it's completely black. Well, all right, it's mostly black with a little white tuft on his chest. Right, and they
Yeah.
decided to name the dog Obsidian. I just call him stupid. Okay. Uh, and I'm not saying the dog is stupid. That's what I'm gonna call him. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's now about 25 months. It's about 2 years old now, and it's not growing anymore. Okay, but it's not a big dog, but it's not a small dog either. It's kind of like a mid-sized dog, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because my daughters have separate schedules and everything, they tend to leave the dog with us when they go out, right? When they go to work, right? Because they don't want the dog to be alone. And this is a needy dog.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be the lab in that dog.
and the friendly tail wagging where it hits wags its tail against the walls sometimes, and it looks like somebody's hitting the wall with a hammer.
Yeah.
So if you hear something
Yeah.
from the dog, he's sitting behind me at the moment. The youngest daughter went to work and forgot it was Saturday, so she dropped the dog over at 4 in the morning. It's like, why don't you live with your sister? Oh, I forgot. I'm sorry. Well, okay, the dog is here. Just let it sit here for a while. So
Yeah.
that I just wanted to. I know this is a long story just to get back to the fact that I got a dog in the room with me. So if it starts whining, you'll understand.
Yeah, we've actually been looking for a dog because I haven't had a dog since it's been 10 years now since I put down my last dog.
Uh,
I had her since 2004. She was the best dog I ever had, and I put her down, and I haven't had the heart to get another one. But
yeah,
we've been, slowly looking for a dog,
the thing is with dogs and like any pets, right? Unfortunately, we tend to outlive them, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a dog that lives its full life, it's not any easier losing a dog abruptly than having to put one down, right? And
Yeah.
we had when I was growing up, we had a dog we called Fluffy, which was this dog was fairly small, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know what it was mixed with, right? But it had long, silky white fur.
Mhm.
Okay, and it was a fun dog and everything, but unfortunately, as it aged, it got to a point where it had serious medical type issues, right? Um, and so forth, and then we had to put her down, and that was sad, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I really liked that dog, and then I mean, you grow up on a farm, you're with animals,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
animals. It's interesting because some animals you take to, some you don't, right?
That's for damn sure.
And so, that dog was well beloved, so it is what it is. Let me. I'm gonna do something. Let me know if you can see this. I'm gonna try and share my screen with
Are you doing it on Discord or are you doing it on your YouTube channel?
you can. Well, I'm doing it on the YouTube channel, but Discord is what I'm trying to get you to look at to see if it works. Because I've been
Okay.
having issues with. I've unfortunately been having issues with Discord.
Yeah, Discord, me too. Discord's been having problems for with me, so
So can you see the?
I absolutely can see it.
Okay, cool, excellent. So I I've been I don't. Do you remember Jensen?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I talk to Jensen still quite a bit, and he when he shares his screen, I can't see it. All right,
That's
on Discord, it's
that's weird, man.
it is, and I've given up on it. Well, part of it's this computer's on its last legs, really.
Yeah, I recently bought a new computer
Well, I
and
go
it
ahead.
is so expensive.
It is. All right, I actually bought one right after the blessings from my wife, but I just haven't hooked it up.
It's a pain, dude, it's a pain in the ass hooking up a new computer.
you know, everything is done. So much of this stuff is done online. I'm afraid of losing all my freaking passwords that I use automatically and everything as well, which is a pain. Right? But eventually, I'm going to have to. I'm going to have to get this done. Right? I've been just procrastinating out the wazoo. But I got stories for the news. Right? And I am curious of your opinions on especially these first few here. All right, let's get started with this. Iran closes the Straits of Hormuz again over the U.S. blockade and fires on ships. From the AP, the standoff over the Strait of Hormuz escalated again Saturday as Iran reversed its reopening of the crucial waterway and fired on ships attempting to pass in retaliation after the United States pressed ahead with the blockade of Iranian ports. New attacks on the straits, through which roughly one-fifth of the world's oil supply normally passes, threaten to deepen the global energy crisis and push countries into renewed conflict as the war entered its eighth week. So, my first question, are you surprised?
Hold on one second.
Sure. And this question isn't just a bear dog, but it's everybody else too. Are you surprised? I don't see how you can be. All right. Believe me, first of all, the Iranian, the, okay, how do I put this? The structure of the Iranian ruling elite, okay, is considerably different, obviously, than ours and every other countries for the most part in the world. Okay. Um,
Okay,
this is
so what was the question? I'm sorry. I'm seeing my wife was asking me something.
okay. I was asking.
I apologize.
That's fine. I was asking you. Are you surprised that the Iranians closed the Strait of Hormuz
No, they're never. No, absolutely not. Nothing. No, look, nothing surprises me anymore.
again? you see, you'll be yelling at clouds soon. Just wait.
Mm-hmm. Shit, I'm already yelling at clouds. MC, I know you're.
Yeah, the this doesn't surprise me, but the reason this is happening, I think, in this case, has to do with the way their ruling elite works. Okay, in the United States, the ruling elite is structured way differently, right? In Iran, the ultimate power in Iran are the clerics, okay, and they have bifurcated their military and their administration. So when you're trying to make a deal with the Iranians, okay, your problem is even if you make a deal with the administration or you make a deal with the military, the other side that's bifurcated, which like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the IRGC, right, and the clerics won't necessarily abide by that. So you can be talking to one person, they say, yeah, everything's fine and dandy. You turn around and it's all been kiboshed. It's all in the kibosh. So the only thing that I have yet to understand is we've known about these stupid little Iranian fast attack boats for a while. Why haven't we blown them out of the water? That's the question I've got to ask. It's like, why haven't you tried to go out there and intentionally just absolutely destroy these things? Right? Why aren't you sitting up there Go ahead. I'm sorry, talking too much.
No, no, no. Go. No, no, no. You're fine. Keep going.
the you know, it's not like we can't have ships going back and forth, and then helicopters, you know, looking for these things to come out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why aren't we doing that? I don't understand the strategy unless I mean, it could be that Trump is trying to force more um, assets from other countries to start stepping up, but the reality is they're not going to. Okay. Now, personally, I mean, everyone can see gas prices have skyrocketed up, and a lot of that is, quite frankly, unnecessary. Now, I don't know what you guys are. What are you paying for gas out in Virginia
Uh, 3.94. I
right
think
now?
it's the cheapest I've seen.
Yeah, the cheapest around here is around 406, 407.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about the same. But the reality is that shot up almost immediately at a time period when there's no need for it. People act like gas prices, you know, uh, a barrel of oil is now 100. What is it? 100 something on the market.
Yeah.
But they act like that's never happened before. Okay, this is not a record, right? So, and I haven't seen gas prices this high. So explain to me why gas prices are this high now. If it isn't,
I
go ahead.
I think we're at $95 a barrel for oil or
Okay,
something like that.
all right. But so what?
I don't know because I don't know. It feels like it happens every time there's some kind of conflict or some kind of something happens in the Middle East, something somewhere. Dude, I don't know. Like
Well,
this whole this whole Iran thing, like we look, we can both agree that this has been going on in the Middle East. Like the shit in the Middle East has been going on since the late 50s, early 60s, right?
uh, yeah, okay. Probably early.
So,
I would say early 50s, but that's
well,
it.
I mean, like the actual like institution of, we are actually going to do, things that, in the desert that, like with the Shah and Iran and blah, 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 and on and all that shit in the 70s. But like when Iran attacked Israel, or was it Palestine that, yeah, Palestine attacked Israel.
Oh no, it wasn't
What,
Palestine. It was the Iranians. Okay, if you go back to the creation of the Israeli state, right?
oh, no, no, no. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about like 2 years ago when this all started.
Oh. When okay, yeah,
Yeah,
they
why we're doing this now, like right now. Like when Palestine attacked Israel, I said that Israel
has.
had every right to defend itself, right?
Oh, you're talking about the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
like Israel had every right to defend itself, right? And now I think it's come to a point where we sh- I don't think the United States should have gotten involved. Period, end of story.
It,
Why? Because it's not my like you know me. I've been an isolationist since the dawn of time. We've been talking. Like if the Middle East wants to blow itself up, like good for you, do it. Go ahead and do it. Just go ahead. Go right ahead. I don't want the United States to be a part of it. You know what I mean?
I do, but I disagree with you in a certain sense.
It's like we are dumping money in a pit and we are lighting it on fire. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is that that's that area. we gotta, for people who don't know the U.S. involvement in the world, everything starts after World War II from the United States perspective. Okay, mainly because the United States wasn't really a world power player. Okay, we were, like you said, fairly isolationist, and we were hardcore isolationist after World War One. All right,
Yeah.
um, which led, people can say that it led to World War Two. Okay, U.S. isolation did not create World War Two.
No.
Okay,
No, it did not.
the problem from a U.S. perspective with dealing with the world was, quite frankly, economically. Okay, as we were recovering from the Great Depression, the country had weight. Okay, economically, we were
Hmm.
we were we were coming out of this, but we were always economically strong. And the one, you know, uh, commodity that everybody was going to, because the world was changing, was oil. And
Yeah.
we were the world's supply of oil. All
Hmm.
right. Roosevelt decided to use economic sanctions as a weapon to try and convince other nations, all right, to, you know, play nice, right? So that we weren't doing things. But while economically we had that power, militarily we didn't. And the result was, Japan, in the thinking in Japan was, is we can attack the United States for what their embargo on us, all right, and we can quickly defeat them because their military is, you know third world,
Yeah.
which they weren't wrong. Okay, the U.S. military at that time was not first world. Okay,
No.
uh, I think we had, at the start of World War II, we had 100,000 men total under arms. I mean, and that includes the Navy, right?
We did conscription during World War II, right? I
Yes,
think
we
we did,
did.
right?
Yes, we
Yeah,
did.
okay.
The last real conscription was Vietnam, and that was,
Hmm.
well, I say real conscription because it was conscription, but to be honest, when you're doing a lottery, all right, you're not conscripting everybody. You're not on a total war footing. World War II, we went on a total war
Yeah. World War II was,
footing.
yeah, that
And
was a little different.
it was, and it, the whole, how it was created, how we reacted to it, the lessons that we as the U.S. military learned in World War II. I mean, as an American, I'm very proud of what we did in World War II overall. Okay, but
Yeah.
at the same time, to say that American soldiers were the best quote unquote soldiers in the world, I wouldn't say that. Okay, I would say that the U.S. military was the strongest in the world, but from a soldier by soldier perspective, there's a huge differential there. But a lot of that has to do with, we're America. I mean,
I mean, like, we did kind of underestimate the Japanese. I mean, to an extent. Like their soldiers compared to our soldiers, that was nuts, right?
well, I mean, from a willingness to die standpoint, yeah, it was nuts. Okay, um, they they had a different mentality.
Yeah.
Okay, but then again, one of the reasons they had a different mentality, and the German soldiers too,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
especially at the beginning of the war. Okay,
Oh yeah.
our leadership was horrible.
But you know what? You got to give it to us. We fought a two theater war,
Yeah.
and we fucking. I mean, we had some. We didn't do it all, but man, when we did it, we fucking did it. You know
Well,
what I mean?
exactly. And see, part of that was because we're America. Okay,
Yeah,
We
back to back World War champs right here. You know what I'm saying?
we were able to build, outbuild, outproduce everybody combined. Okay.
Yeah, and like, and to fight, and again, I just can't emphasize enough that we are fighting on two theaters
Right.
in two different parts of the world on separate continents. It would like that is just the coolest shit, right?
And what's interesting is people don't know this, but the primary effort, even while we were taking the time to fight in the Pacific, our primary effort was to defeat Germany first. That
Yeah,
was always the U.S.'s main main process because that's what Roosevelt had determined our policy to be. Right? I mean, whether you like it or not, the president determines military policy.
yeah.
All right, overall. Right? I mean, I'm not saying that he doesn't have the War Department or the Defense Department or any,
Well,
those
there's always got to be
departments.
checks and balances,
But
right?
for the most part, the president is the one he is the commander in chief of the armed forces. If he wants to tell a general, you move these troops from here to here, even if it's stupid, he has the authority to do that. Okay?
Yeah.
I, I don't think people understand that, right? Which has gotten us into other issues before, right? I mean,
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was one of the problems. Believe it or not, it was one of the problems in the Civil War. In many ways, Abraham Lincoln, for as great as he was, tended to get
Mad Dog is rolling over in his grave right now. I want you to know. He is. I can hear him. I can hear him right now.
for all of his for all of his greatness. All right, he also interfered with the you know the generals. All right, a, too much. All right, in some cases, right, and that ended up prolonging the war. Right.
So Trump is now so to get back to loop around to where we are with the straight.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump is now claiming that Iran is basically holding us to extortion.
Well, yeah, that is what he said.
Okay.
All right, let's see. Since we ought to get on to the next story here, Trump said Iran cannot blackmail the U.S. after the Middle Eastern country threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz again. The president addressed the deepening crisis during a Q&A session on Saturday, shortly after he signed an unrelated executive order to ease access to psychedelic drugs used to treat PTSD. All right, Trump revealed.
That is a weird sentence right there, but all right.
Not one you
I'm
come
like,
across
okay.
that often.
I'm like, all right, cool. I guess.
All right, who wrote this? Alyssa Guzman, okay, for a U.S. news reporter. The president, I'm sorry, Trump revealed that the talks between the United States and Iran are going very well, despite the issue with Iran opening and closing the strait and threatening ships that enter the oil-rich area. They wanted to close the strait up again, as they have been doing for years, but they cannot blackmail us, Trump said. Okay, so talk about this for just a quick moment. The the Iranians have tried to say, okay, if you pay us $2 million per ship, we will allow you to go next to our coastline and then out the Straits of Hormuz.
Yeah.
Right, and the reason they wanted to do that was so that they can get their oil out, right? Sell their oil,
Hmm.
and who do they sell their oil to? They sell it to China.
China. I was about to say, didn't China get involved? No.
Well, China and India are the two big ones, right? China has put some ships in the area, right? They are not their primary ships; they're just smaller little ships, and some intelligence gathering ships, right?
Uh huh.
So China is looking at the situation, but they haven't really done anything aggressively. Nor do I expect them to. Right, but that's a separate for separate reasons. Not because they
Yeah.
don't want to.
Oh yeah. Not because they don't want to.
They just can't. Right, and it has nothing to do with the U.S. being big bad bully. Okay, it has to do with their their navy suffers from, just like all the country suffers from, such massive corruption that they can't project power with it. Okay,
Yeah.
uh, I'll just give one side example. What their big ship, their bigger aircraft carrier that they, not the newest one, but the one that they built right before this last one they tried to launch.
Hmm.
They were doing exercises in the South China Sea, and they broke the flight deck in
Oh yeah, I think I heard about that.
half. So I just want to point this out. You combine that with their missile readiness, the test that they did, and they found that approximately 50% of their missiles were fueled with water.
Oh my god.
I mean, the, the Chinese military is. I'm not saying that they're nothing, okay, but they've got problems, especially when it comes
They've
to
got,
power.
they've got numbers. That's what they have. They have
Yes.
numbers.
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
numbers ain't gonna do a lot for a ship in water.
That's for damn sure.
So they were doing that, and Trump rightly pointed out that with the Iranians, the $2 million things, it's like they're basically trying to play a toll here. You have to pay us a toll. And when other countries were like, specifically the European countries, which are also very dependent upon the oil here, said, well, I'm thinking about paying it. Trump said, okay, well, you want to play that game? Pay it to us. Okay, the straits are closed. We'll take your
Yeah.
revenue. And then he said, okay, we won't go that far. We'll just say, look, if you stop at an Iranian port, we're gonna send you back to the Iranian port, and that's what he's been doing. So the Chinese ships have been sent back. They had like 10 of them attempt to go through the straits in the last week or so, and they were all sent back to the Iranian ports. Now, a Chinese ship that went to Qatar, I think it was Qatar or the UAE, and got fully loaded. They didn't stop that one from leaving, just the ones that
Hmm.
were up the Iranian port. So right now, what Trump is doing is he's playing the long game and saying, okay, how much longer can you survive this? Now, initially, people were saying, well, why don't we just take the oil fields? And I can understand why they would ask that, all right? But that would take ground troops,
Yeah.
and Trump does not want to put in ground troops anymore. Okay, but he doesn't have to either. All right. One of the things that the Iranians don't have is they don't have a large capacity to store oil that they're pumping out of the ground. And I didn't know this until very recently. When you stop pumping oil out of the ground, what happens is water seeps in.
Hmm.
And when water seeps in, obviously that creates a problem because oil and water don't necessarily mix when you're trying to pump it out together, number one.
Yeah.
All right. It destroys the pumps themselves, right? If there's too much water. And the other thing it does is it forces the oil back into the ground, right? When it's just shut off, right? The oil seeps
Mm.
back out of the wells. So the amount of oil that you can pump drops significantly. All right. If you after a capped well to go back in there and start pumping it again, the pressure, the amount of oil that you're going to get in a day has now dropped by like 15, 20, 25%. Okay. So they, of course, don't want to do that because that's, you know, oil per day being hit in the world market is how they make money. Okay.
Yeah.
So Trump is basically saying, fine, you have no place to put the oil. Well, if you got to turn off the pumps, sucks to be you. Right. So it's a long game. Personally, and this is where I disagree with Bear Dog. It, personally, I would go full bore because the problem, as I see it, isn't this Iranian leader or that Iranian leader. It isn't Hamas. It isn't Hezbollah. All right. The problem is the culture, and the culture produces them every single time. It does. It produces dictatorships every single time. Even our supposed allies in the region, right? Like Saudi Arabia, right? Would you say Saudi Arabia is a free democratic society?
No.
I don't think so.
Well, my thing with Iran is it really went to shit after they ousted the Shah. When they ousted the Shah, because it's so funny because if you look at pictures from the 60s and 70s in Tehran, Iran,
Mhm.
it looks kind of like America. No one's in the fucking burqas. No one's like women are walking around freely. Blah blah blah. All that shit. And then the Shah is ousted, and then they establish the dictatorship, that regime, and changed basically everything.
Yeah, we tend to look at the Middle East countries like Saudi Arabia, and we think that Iran is similar to Saudi Arabia, just with a different dictator. Okay, but there's a huge difference in Saudi Arabia and the other Arab countries and Iran. And the reason is because whether we like to believe it or not, Iran is a nation state. It's not a collection of warlords. It's a true nation state. Okay, they consider themselves Iranians first, right? Not I'm from the Bakhtar tribe, right? Or the Edfadal tribe, right? They're not tribal. Okay, that's not saying that there aren't tribal elements like the Kurds within the borders of Iran, but overall, the Iranians are not tribal, right? They're Iranians. They don't speak Arabic. They speak Farsi, which is Persian, right? They are the inheritors of the Persian Empire, and they have a different type of national collective identity versus a tribal identity. All right,
Yeah.
and what? Why is that important? Well, because we need to get the nation to surrender. All right, this is a nation that needs to say, okay, we surrender to the United States, or we surrender to, however you want to look at it, in order for this war to end. And until we do that, nothing's going to happen. Now, like I was saying, this is one of the things that I've disagreed with Bear Dog about. When we went into Iraq, and I don't have the problem, I still to this day don't have a problem going in. I have a problem with what we did once we were there, all right? But I had no problem going in. And when we were there, and we started getting problems from the Iranians killing our soldiers by IEDs, we should have finished Iran off when we were there with our forces. After we had kicked out and taken out Saddam Hussein, right? Even when we were searching for him, I would have been moving our troops along that border and just said, okay, Iran, you're next. That's what I would have done. Because they're never going to stop. Not this current head. And you were right. Under the Shah, it was becoming a modern nation state. Right? But after the fall, after the Shah was kicked out, and there were Jimmy Carter had a guy named Brzezinski, right? And his first name starts with a Z, Jabrezhnev. I know I'm butchering it, and I apologize. I don't mean to. Brzezinski was his Secretary of State, all right? And Carter, his big push, if you remember, was SALT. Well, I shouldn't say you remember because you're quite a bit younger than
I am. Yeah, I was about to say I was born in the 80s.
Right, Carter at that time was trying to get the Soviets, because you still had the Soviet Union, was trying to work with the Soviets to reduce salt, the salt talks, the strategic arm limitation talks with the Soviet Union, right? And Brzezinski was focused on that. When they started hearing rumblings about internal problems in Iran with the Shah, Carter asked Brzezinski, is this a problem? And Brzezinski said, no. Well, Brzezinski was wrong. Right?
Yeah.
And he was wrong, and it was, catastrophically wrong because he didn't realize what was going on, right? Not from the perspective of what was going on in Iran. He didn't realize what was going on around internationally. Okay. Do you know where Ayatollah Khomeini was living prior to kicking the Shah out?
Nope.
He was living in Paris. All right.
Makes sense.
He was living in the great life of Paris, and Europeans, specifically the French, right, were
It's always the French.
you know.
It's always the fucking French, man.
Jensen would say, nuke Paris. And after you're done nuking them, throw another one just to be sure. All right. The French were okay. The French were players in this, and they were thinking that they could create an influence sphere for themselves away from the United States, because France has long ties, even going back to before World War I, but definitely after World War I, within that region. Right. And so they thought, well, this is a way to get our influences there. We'll do this and we'll rebuild them. So if you go back to that time frame, that's when the Iranians started building a nuclear reactor, which then got bombed by the Israelis.
Yep.
All right. And the people who were building the reactor are the same ones that were building it in Syria, all right, when it got bombed by the Israelis. Right, which was the French government, because at the time in the 70s and in the 80s, France was all about nuclear power. Right. And so they had a lot of expertise in producing nuclear power plants, and so they were building them, and they were building these reactors to be what they call breeder reactors, which is a little bit different than what's going on now, but the breeder reactors, which take uranium, U-238, right, and turn it into plutonium. Okay, and you then process the plutonium chemically now, where you don't have to process it physically. For those who don't understand, if you're going to separate U-235 or any isotope from its other isotopes, the way that you have to do it is you have to use the physical characteristics of the material. All right, and since it's something's lighter, and then like U-235 is lighter than U-238, well then you spin it, because you use centrifuges basically to spin it to increase the amount of isotope from one, or separate the isotopes. Right, when you're going from uranium to like plutonium, just like when you're going from gold to iron, you can leach the gold out of the iron using chemical processes, which is much easier, all right, because we understand those processes a lot more, and you're not trying to just pull small little pieces using gas centrifuges. So, but anyway, I'm too far in the weeds with that.
That's all right.
I'm just explaining what the process is. All right. Back here in the United States, House rejects efforts to withdraw the U.S. forces from Iran war as Republicans stick with Trump. From Kevin Freaking? I'm not trying to butcher your name. Freking. That's like the
Yeah.
The House rejected a resolution Thursday requiring President Trump to withdraw U.S. forces from the war with Iran unless Congress authorizes military action. It was the latest such vote that fell short of passage as Republicans largely continue to support Trump's operation. Okay. The Republican majority in the House is very narrow, right? So the vote in the House was defeated by one vote. In this case, however, you had a couple of Democrats cross over to vote with the president or well, the president's position. They were not voting with the president, but with the majority. And so some Republicans had voted to end it as well. Okay, so it was kind of like a bipartisan effort if you want to look at it from that standpoint on both sides. But regardless of this all goes back to something that irritates people dramatically, right? And that is, does the president have the right to declare war? Not technically, but in reality, right? We are bombing. Let's be honest. We are bombing Iran, right? Did he ask Congress to let him bomb Iran? No. Well, isn't Congress the only ones who are supposed to have the power to declare war? Yes. If you look at the the Constitution, that's the way it's stated. Okay. But this all goes back to something called the War Powers Act. All right. And the War Powers Act was the authorization to use force in Vietnam, for those who don't know. Okay. And unless Congress repeals that, they've given the president basic carte blanche for months at a time to conduct military operations. So
So you're saying that the president has the power to declare war, not Congress.
the way Congress gave up that authority, for the answer to that is yes, because
I
Congress
mean the
gave the
the war
president that authority.
I mean the war powers resolution just created like stricter confines in which the president can engage in war though.
No, it released.
Ultimately Congress has the say in which to declare war.
Well, okay, but how do you declare war? Is it a military action? What is a war? How do you define a war? Okay, um, was the Korean War a war, or was it the Korean conflict? I'm
I
just giving.
mean,
Yeah, I'm just putting the Vietnam
we can
War.
go into the weeds on that one.
Well,
Look,
go ahead.
I, I I'm not for Vietnam. I was never for Vietnam. I wasn't for whatever the fuck we did in Korea, whatever that was. You know, I, I you know, I'm
In
not for what we're doing right now at all.
in Korea
I,
and in Vietnam, and people you can say what you want about it, but in Korea and Vietnam, we were attacked. Right now, was the attack on our ships in Vietnam that started our large conflict in there? Was that significant enough? Okay. I'm not going to argue. Okay. And there was a lot of confusion for a lot of reasons, which I could go into, but I'm not going to. In Korea, the U.S. forces in South Korea were attacked by the North Koreans, so we were brought into that conflict through that. Was that significant enough to trigger a conflict or military operation? All right. These are all questions that people can argue about. Right. Our attack on Iraq, okay, you can say came about for a variety of reasons, not the least of which they were trying to shoot at our planes that were enforcing a ceasefire or a no-fly zone. All right. Was that enough? Okay. Of a reason to go after them. All right. All three of those, you can look at it and say if you really want to get to the nitpicking little weeds, U.S. forces were attacked. If you look at what we did in Iran, all right, unless you sit up there and go, hey, they were attacking our soldiers through these proxies, which they were, okay, we were totally the aggressor. Okay. Once again, I have no problem bombing them personally. Okay. Um, I have a problem with how they're executing this. Okay. But that's a separate issue because I don't believe in tit tat little operations. I don't believe in this nonsense of going, oh, but you've got to worry about this and you got to worry about that. Okay. I don't play the let's dance on the head of a pin saying, oh, that they're just innocent civilians. All right, with no agency. I don't buy into that either. Okay, I believe in total war. I'm a throwback. You get to the person who came up with the idea of total war was Sherman. Sherman's March to the Sea, right? But whether you like Sherman, don't like Sherman, all right, back in the U.S. Civil War, he was right. War is hell, and if you try to make it cleaner and nicer, all it does is prolong the conflict, prolong the killing, and it doesn't stop the suffering of the populace. That's my view. Okay. After World War
Yeah.
II, we there was an initial attempt to draw down. Okay. Which had been the U.S.'s modus operandi. Okay. After a war, the U.S. always took all of our troops. They came home, and we drew down our military to bare bones. Okay. There was a problem in two regards with that. First of all, there was acknowledgement because there was a creation. Let me learn how to use my tongue a little bit. We created the United States Air Force. We separated the U.S. Army Air Corps and made it the United States Air Force, and we threw assets into that. The reason for that is we were dealing now with ballistic missile technology. Okay, so the forces couldn't draw down like we normally did because we had to build up an entire new capability. And what's worse is even as we are drawing down, you end up with the North Koreans attacking South Korea. Okay, and the U.S. had troops there, stationed troops there as part of the occupation of Japan because they had removed the Japanese forces from there, which brought us into that conflict. So we weren't able to draw down like we normally would. The result of that was the U.S. getting more and more involved in aspects around the world, and not for the better. By that, okay. So you end up, like I said, we end up in Vietnam with the War Powers Resolution, but the War Powers Resolution, right, basically authorized, it codified, saying that a president can go in unilaterally and take military action for up to 60 days without congressional approval. All right, but after 60 days, he has to come to Congress and get a, what do you call it, a re-up, basically, to continue the conflict. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and this is something that Congress has been doing for a while. Congress has been ceding power. Right? This is a U.S. perspective, folks, so I apologize if I'm boring everybody out there with the U.S. perspective. It basically gave the U.S. president more power, the executive branch more power. Not just this president, but every president. To engage in conflicts around the world as he saw fit. And the rationale that they used was because missiles fly, from one end of the earth to the other end of the earth in 20 minutes, you don't have time for a congressional vote. Right? Good thing, bad thing? Up to people to sit up there and make that decision. Personally, I think the War Powers Resolution was a mistake. But that's just me. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know. So when people complain about it, not much you can do about it. Let's go to a different theater of war. Ukraine says it hits 3 Russian warships in the Crimea. From Xinhua News, this is the Chinese news network. The security service in Ukraine said Saturday it struck 3 Russian warships, a radar systems and logistics infrastructure in Crimea. The agency said it conducted a complex operation in Crimea in which large landing ships of the Russian Navy, the Yamal and the Azov, as well as a third warship of an unidentified type, were hit, according to its post on Telegram. It claimed that there were probable damage to a Russian anti-sabotage boat as well. So the conflict in the Ukraine still continues. The war is a meat grinder, and the Russians are still advancing 4 or 5 yards every day. Right?
Yeah.
Now, do we have a dog in this fight? My answer is no. But I don't know. Do you think we should be shipping them arms and weapons?
I mean, we did that in World War II before we even joined the war.
That is true. That is very true.
I mean, that's a very America thing to do.
It is. Okay. In fact, in World War One, we initially were shipping weapons and arms and stuff to both sides.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to be in either World War, and we were kind of forced to be in the World War. But
Well, in World War Two, Japan attacked us, right? Full out to try and take because they were worried that we would go to war, which we wouldn't have, by the way. Right? For people who don't know understand this, the United States ended up in World War II because the shock kicked us out of isolationism. All right. Now, as far as the embargoes go, we were going to embargo oil, but if Japan had attacked Britain, okay, and the Dutch East Indies, which is where the oil reserves were that they really wanted, even the Philippines, though the Philippines was there, the United States was not going to interdict those ships. The United States would have just let Japan take the oil from the Dutch East Indies, right, to run its war machine. We would have. Okay, but because they attacked us, we went to war.
yeah,
And once we declared war on Japan, Hitler, for whatever reason, the maniac that he was, right? He thinking, well, Americans are a bunch of mongrels, which is what he called us, right? Declared war on the United States. Why? Sure, we were going to continue to feed and supply weapons to at this point was mainly just to Churchill and the British, right? And we were also shipping stuff to the Soviet Union, which the war with Japan put a crimp in because we had been shipping a lot of our stuff through the northern ports, right, on the western side of our western side, the eastern side of Russia, all right. We weren't really going to Angelharsk and across and sending convoys of supplies all the way to the northern areas of the Soviet Union until Germany declared war on us. At which point we were fully supplying them completely at that point. But if we weren't attacked, right? If Japan had said, okay, we will attack these other countries, I honestly don't think that the United States was going to declare war on Japan. Roosevelt wanted us to.
Yeah.
Roosevelt wanted us to declare war on, actually wanted us to declare war on Nazi Germany, but he knew that he couldn't get it done, right? So he also understood that we need to at least the way things are going. You have to understand we're probably in somebody's line of fire. We need to start rearming. So we had begun the process of rearming, right? But we were not ready for that war, right? We weren't ready for World War II.
Yeah.
So, and once again, that was defensive. In Korea, you could say it was defensive. Even in Vietnam, you could say it was defensive. This last one, unless you go back and say, look at what they've been doing to Americans throughout the region, we were completely on the offense. Now, in the Ukraine, I don't think we got a dog in the fight. Right? The nation state of Ukraine, when did it come into existence? Right? Historically, it's never existed. Right? The closest you can come to a Ukraine with the flag that they now fly, by the way, the closest was for a 6-month period after the fall of Russia, the Russian Empire, into the Soviet Union. In between that time frame, Ukraine existed for a 6-month period. 6 months. Other than that, it's been a Russian civil war back and forth between Kiev and Moscow. As long as well, you could even take it back almost as long as the frickin' Israelis and then what's going on in the Middle East. You really want to go back that far, right? You can go back to at one point the capital of the Russian Empire was actually Kiev. All right, and they were the ones that actually charged. They had taken everything over what was in Kiev, and then of course you end up with the one big destabilizing influence there at the time was Poland, basically the duchies and the little principalities in Warsaw, all right, who had were players, back in the nobility time frame. Is what I'm talking about. So
Yeah, I don't honestly about Russia and the Ukraine conflict. I don't care how long Ukraine has not been a state, has been a state. I don't give a fuck. They're a state. They're being attacked. I don't care how long they were a part of the Soviet bloc. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to channel Ronald Reagan for a second and be like, fuck Russia. Because I'm telling you, I and I'm telling you, Ronald Reagan is rolling in his grave about all these fucking people supporting Russia. All these Americans just coming out and supporting Russia. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Do you, do you not remember anything that happened in history ever? I don't know, man. I don't agree with Russia. I don't agree with what they're doing. Period. End of story.
well, I think that it's an example of a civil war within the group, and this is how I look at it. Do I principally disagree with shipping arms to the Ukrainians? No, actually I don't. Okay, my problem is this automatic assumption that the United States can be taken advantage of and that we don't deserve any kind of reciprocity, if that makes any sense to you. Okay, and I really hate, and I really dislike, all right, Zelensky. That doesn't mean I like Putin. I hate him too. Okay, and if I could have my druthers, I'd do what we did in the Iran-Iraq war, which is feed information to both sides and let them murder each other. The
I mean,
Ukrainian people,
why can't we do that in the Middle East though?
we did do it.
Are we Team America world police or aren't we?
Well,
Like we can't fucking be both, you know what I mean? Like we're either Team America world police and we're involved in goddamn everything that happens in the world or we're not.
you're not going to hear me argue, right? Personally, right? Okay. There was for people who think that the United States has only been one sided in these issues, right? And they have to really study history. Like, for example, do you know what the Suez incident was?
Vaguely.
Okay, for those who don't know, in the
That's
19
Suez Canal, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
in the 1950s, the British and the French put troops to seize the Suez Canal from the Egyptians. Okay, and it was Eisenhower, right, who then told both Britain and the French, "You have no right to do this. You will get your troops out of there, or we will enforce a UN operation to remove you." At which point the British and the French said, "Okay, I don't want to inflame this any further," and they left. Okay, so the United States has not always been, you know, like one side or this side or whatever, right? I mean, we've played a lot of different sides as the U.S. interests were determined. It was really more of the aggression from the Soviet Union that caused us to create a bipolar kind of a outlook, right? And that's one of the reasons why we ended up becoming a destabilizing influence in Iran prior to the rise of the Shah. But
Yeah.
one of the things that could cause a problem, though, in the current situation is right now there's a ceasefire in Lebanon, between Israel and Lebanon. But what's in the Daily Mail today? French soldier killed in Lebanon as Macron blames Hezbollah for an ambush that also wounded 3 other soldiers. A French soldier has been shot dead after UN peacekeepers were ambushed by an armed group in southern Lebanon. He suffered a direct gunshot as opposed to, I don't know, an indirect gunshot.
Yeah, I've never heard of an indirect gunshot.
All right. After the patrol came under small arms fire on Saturday morning, with 3 others injured in the attack. The attempts were made to resuscitate him, but he tragically succumbed to his injuries. French President Emmanuel Macron, or Macaron as I call it, Macaron has blamed Hezbollah for the incident, which occurred just one day after the ceasefire between Lebanon and Israel took effect. All right. Lebanon is Lebanon used to be the most stable country, but it was always very fragile. Now, however, it is just totally war torn. You got so many different elements involved in it now, and they all hate one another. And it's been that
Yeah. Oh
way.
yeah.
It's been that way since, you know. For those who don't know, Lebanon was destabilized because of the Black September. Okay, so I know a lot of people are like, "What the hell's Black September?" Okay, well, Black September was when Israel in 1967 seized the West Bank. A lot of the Palestinians fled right across the border, right, to Jordan. Okay, now the Jordanian king at the time was willing to make deals with the Palestinians and try to get them out of the camps. He made the majority of them Jordanian citizens, right? But Yasser Arafat and the PLO took over, and they literally attacked to try and take over all of Jordan and kill King Hussein, right? Along with many of the people in the parliament. Right? The Jordanians said no, and they fought the PLO and basically kicked them out. Approximately 3 or 4,000 Palestinians were killed during this time frame. Well, when he kicked them out, where are they going to go? Well, Lebanon, Syria and Lebanon. Okay, and of course that then created a destabilizing influence within Lebanon, because Lebanon had, of course, the Maronite Christians. They also had the Druze Muslims, right? You have another sect called the Alawite Muslims, and then, of course, now you've brought in the Palestinians who were quote unquote Sunni Muslims, right? So the government at the time was 50% Maronite Christian and 50% Muslim due to treaties that were produced by the French, right? When they wrote the Lebanese Constitution. Well, the Maronite Christians at the time were about 50% of the population due to various reasons, not the least of which you got immigration from these other countries. The Muslim population got so large it was 75 to 80% of the population, and they were being, and they could, rightly so, felt underrepresented in their government. Okay, this was a perfect opportunity for Arafat to try and take over Lebanon, and so he destabilized that region. Right? Arafat was, for people who don't know, they think of him as a great Palestinian hero. Arafat was an evil man. He truly was. Right? And so what you ended up with is there was a change in the Lebanese government, but it's never been stable since then. Right? So, but that's just a quick version of
You know what,
that.
MC? You know what that sounds like?
What?
A whole lot of not the United States problem.
What?
That's what it sounds like. I know, you fucking hate that, but I'm
No, because you're
sorry.
not wrong. But I'm saying that strictly from looking at it from that narrow little perspective. If you take a look at it from a global perspective, what was the other player that was helping fuel that problem? And of course, that was the Soviet Union in the bipolar world that was created after World War I, or World War II. So that the Russians, as bad as American foreign policy is, the Soviet Union's foreign policy was even worse. Okay, so
Oh yeah, no,
it,
yeah,
pe-
absolutely.
people forget that the Soviet Union has been. We concentrate on Americans getting involved in this and American troops dying and everything else, right? We tend to ignore the fact that that's true of Russia throughout this entire region, this entire time frame as well. The difference is how they respond, right? When Russia responded, or when the Soviet Union responded, they came in with massive force, okay, and they wiped out everybody. Now you can say that was successful, but you end up, if you take a look at what's left of the Soviet Union and what they still have, are the regions that they were a part of stable? Like Afghanistan? No. Right? Chechnya? No. Right? Syria? No. So did it work for them any better? Not as not not really.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just absolute fucking turmoil and like,
You want to go back to the 1920s, don't
hell yeah, dude. I don't look. I'm not a Zionist. Never have been. Never will be. But I am for the Jewish people. Just like, I don't know. I don't like and the other thing is I didn't really have a problem with Israel. And now I'm like we're like dumping all this money. We have been dumping all this money into Israel and I'm like, why?
you?
What's
Yeah.
the point? Why do we keep dumping money into countries? Why can't we take the money that we dump into other countries and just keep it at home? And like fix shit here that needs to be fixed. I think if you want to talk, look, if you want to talk on America first and make America great again and all that other MAGA shit that the Republicans like to talk about, why can't we pull all of our money back and invest it in America? That's putting America first.
First of all, I totally agree with you. Right, with number one. Number two is that I don't think that MAGA is what people think it is. All right, because I
MAGA
don't
is
think
what you cut out. MAGA is what?
I said I don't think MAGA is what you think it is because MAGA is not Republican. Okay, I just want you to understand that the Republicans are no more. There are MAGA Republicans, but they're not. They're not the majority by any stretch.
Oh, are you
Okay,
guys separating now? You guys, there are
they've always been
MAGAs and there are
separated.
Republicans.
They've always been separated. I mean, it goes along certain ideological lines, right?
I mean, I've met never Trump Republicans.
you will find there's a really wide variance there. The most of the leadership of the current leadership is tepidly MAGA, right? But they're not full throated MAGA. Thune, for example, is not a MAGA Republican, right? And Thune is the majority leader in the Senate, but that's a separate issue, right?
Hmm.
I totally agree with you, right? I don't disagree with you at all, and the reason has to do with, look, the problems the United States has ran into, like in the Middle East. Why are we in the Middle East? Perfect, perfect example. If you look at it from a global perspective, why we are in the Middle East has nothing to do with the United States. It has everything to do with allies in the region and outside of the region. It has
Yeah.
nothing to do with the U.S. All right, but see, we were quote unquote the leader of the world. Okay, did the United States ever want to be the leader of the world? I didn't. Did you vote on that?
Nope.
Right, right. Um, I look, when you had the Soviet Union there and you had everyone worried about the Soviet Union taking over the world. Okay, maybe you had a point, but right now the world has no. There is nobody else like the United States, right?
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, we're the leader, but to be honest, we don't need to be here, and we have no dog in a lot of these fights, right? I don't mind doing certain things to help out people that are friendly to the United States. But the problem that I have is that a lot of these people that have claimed that they are friends of the United States have never been friendly to the United States in the modern era. That's a reality. You can't look at Germany today and say that the leadership and the German people are the same kind of allies that they were prior to the fall of the Soviet Union. Once the Soviet Union collapsed, the Germans have been going out of their way to stick it in our eye every opportunity. And every nation has done that. When the big threat, when the big bad wolf went away, all these supposed allied nations have been treating us as competitors and adversaries more than they've been treating us as allies. Well, okay, then handle it yourselves, right? I've been calling for an end of NATO for a long time. I think we need to get rid of NATO. I think we need to get rid of the UN too. I think the U.S. involvement in the UN. We don't need to be there. Why do we need to be funding the bills for all these people, right? Now they'll come back and claim that the U.S. doesn't give that much to these areas. Yes, it does. It does it in backdoor ways though that people don't see, which is why when the U.S. pulls out of some of these economic agreements that they have, they all start screaming bloody murder. So I
I
agree with you.
think there needs to be like a line, like how you do in court, or how you do like a line item veto. Like going, if we are going to stay in the UN or NATO or whatever, we need a line by line of what we agree to and what we don't.
I can't disagree.
Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense, but when it comes to NATO, there is no NATO without the United States. Right? That wasn't true when I was stationed over there. Okay, in Germany, I was stationed in Germany for 6 years on two separate tours. During that time frame, right, you still had the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was still the bad guys, right? So they were allies. They treated us as allies. They were stepping up on their defense spending. They were stepping up to work with the United States. Right?
Yeah, I don't think people remember, or they're too young or whatever, or ignorant, or willfully ignorant, don't remember how powerful the Soviet Union was.
Oh yeah, yeah. The Soviet Union.
Like, go ahead.
You're right. One of the things that shocked the world. This is what people don't understand. The Soviet Union put a satellite. Was the first nation to put a satellite in orbit. Okay. Now, a lot, and people go, well, what's the big deal about that? the big deal about that was if you could put a satellite in orbit, you have intercontinental ballistic capability. Anybody people who talk about, oh yeah, well, bringing it back into the Earth's atmosphere, it's harder to do that. No, it's not.
Nope.
Okay, we had that technology in the 40s, in the late 40s. Okay, when we
Oh,
thought,
MC, don't get me started on people who think that the moon mission we just did or whatever, people think it's fake. Like they think the Russians putting the satellites up and doing all that shit, what the USSR did was all fake and all this shit. And I just want to fucking strangle someone, MC.
it's look.
Like I think people are becoming just dumber because you have information at your fingertips, and if it's not willful ignorance, then it's malice, then it's malicious.
Yeah, I think that,
Because like I think like the USSR doesn't hold a candle to what Russia is today. And I'm not saying that Russia isn't powerful. It still is. But it is not
no.
the USS who the USS was or
Oh yes,
USSR
no,
was.
no, they're not. Okay.
They're still they are still a powerful entity. I'm not saying they're not,
Okay.
but they are not who they used to be.
Well, when the Soviet Union was full bore, okay, we had approximately about 5,000 at the time, 5,000 main battle tanks. Okay, the Soviet Union had 20
Yeah.
thousand,
Yeah.
and they were their their scientists, especially their physicists, right, were way beyond what ours were. Right, that's a reality. Okay, um, now the, it wasn't they were it wasn't that they were strong everywhere. Okay, but they were very strong in the early aspects of that time frame because of the modern industrial state when it came to armament production. All right, number of artillery shells, number of tanks. No, they blew us away. Okay, they were far above
Yeah.
us. Plane, the number of planes that they had, right? Number of jets and so forth that they had, and they were these. People forget the best jet for the longest time. All right, in the 50s and the 60s, right, were Russian.
Yep.
Sure, I'd like to beat the chest about America's chest all the time, but you got to admit that the MiG 15 was the best fighter jet in the world.
I mean, I think maybe it's because I grew up with boomer parents who told me about the Cold War and how real the conflict with the USSR was. Like, we were a dick hair away from total annihilation.
Oh, yeah.
And people just, gloss that over or forget it, or they're like, an infant and don't have no idea and or willfully ignorant, etc.
Right, because and it became worse because as technology, all right, changed over time, and in order for large sections of technology have changed, right, over a broader scope, right, through broader areas, the Soviets, right, seeing this, they saw a gap beginning, right. The difference in the material gaps and everything became worse and worse for them. Their response to that was, "We're going to build nuclear weapons."
Yeah.
Right. That's how they responded.
I mean,
Right?
and that's where we get mutually assured destruction.
Yes.
That is where it comes from.
Yes. All right. So as these separate areas, as we improved over broader areas, so our technology allowed us to build things like the F-14 to become superior, not just by a little bit, but by leaps and bounds. As our technology to build surface to air missiles and air to air missiles, the gap between the capabilities of those missiles grew wider and wider. All right, as a result of the ability to, I'm talking about accuracy and so forth, right?
I
As
mean,
that,
that's why competition is so important because we were competing with the
yes,
USSR in
yes,
our arms,
right.
and we became better, faster, stronger, make it better, do it faster.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah,
let's go.
and even then, there were certain areas that the Russians still beat us at. People forget this.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They forget that you had something called the Alpha submarine. When the Alphas came out, okay, which were produced by the Soviet Union, when we first witnessed their capability in one of the war games, well, NATO was absolutely, and the rest of the United States was absolutely terrified.
Yep.
It could dive below our ability to shoot at it. It was faster than any sub, and it was almost as fast, not quite, but almost as fast as our torpedoes, which means you had to get close to hit it with one of our torpedoes, right? It was that fast. Now,
So yeah, so these people, like, to circle back, so these people talking about, supporting Russia and this, that, and the other thing, and I just, go back to my parents being, going through the Cold War and me being like, wow, I could never support them ever. I could never support Russia. Fuck them.
there, people also forget what the left was like in this country back then, because a lot of the left in the country, you had people like Kennedy, Ted Kennedy now, all right, who had sent letters saying we'll help you try to rein in Ronald Reagan, right? I mean,
Yeah.
all right. But anyway, Russia. Yeah, look, Russia's never been our friend. All right. They haven't always been an enemy. Okay, and they're not. Putin is not trustworthy. But then again, none of those people from those Middle East countries, but not sorry, Middle East. I meant to say Eastern European countries. Right? None of them are trustworthy.
I wouldn't be trusting fucking nobody.
No. Well,
Honest to God, nobody.
you can trust certain things about certain groups, but when it comes down to what they're going to do for as far as we go, look, it is what it is. Let's get to this next story because
Sorry.
I've been really wanting to get up here. Really, let's just do this one instead. How's that?
Okay.
Kentucky cops arrest an equestrian 48 for GUI, galloping under the influence.
Oh my God.
The driver, Kentucky cops say, had just left the liquor store, smelled of alcohol, and found partially slumped over the controls of his brown vehicle. As a result, Jorge Hernandez, 48, was arrested for galloping under the influence through a residential neighborhood in Bowling Green. According to the arrest affidavit, the officer spotted the sagging Hernandez on top of a horse at 6 p.m. on Thursday. When he began to ride on the sidewalk, the cop performed a traffic stop.
Oh my God. Leave the man alone. Like, just leave him alone. Oh my God.
So is it illegal to gallop a horse on a sidewalk?
This is like those guys that get arrested on their lawnmowers, drunk as hell, trying to get to the 7-Eleven. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Or they're on their fucking tractor going to the 7-Eleven trying to get drunk. Like,
Well, okay, now, but a tractor, let's be honest, the tractors are they're powerful vehicles. They can do damage. You're not going to do that.
I mean that's fair, but I mean, like, if a horse does, wander into traffic and someone hits it, I mean, like, that kind of sucks.
I mean, the guy, he rode the horse to the liquor store. All right, he tied it up like it's supposed to. Got back on the horse. I'm sorry. If you had Kentucky, your cops have nothing better to do than arrest a guy on a horse. I mean,
Gas prices, bro.
This is my favorite group here, the Canadians. Air Canada temporarily suspends some flights to New York and other locations. Spirit Airlines reportedly seeks emergency U.S. government funding as war against Iran keeps aviation fuel costs high. Air Canada has announced a temporary suspension of flights from Toronto and Montreal to New York's JFK Airport, citing rising fuel prices. The move comes amid growing concerns that the airlines worldwide may scale back services as airline fuel costs climb in the wake of the U.S.-Israeli ongoing war with Iran, which entered a fragile ceasefire earlier in April. For those who don't know, this was written by, who's the author? I don't see an author on here, but it's from The Guardian. Okay, and then we have Canada revises express entry immigration rules, adds military roles. Canada has introduced a new immigration priority categories on Wednesday to bring in skilled workers in fields ranging from research and healthcare to aviation, and to include certain military recruits. The new categories align with Prime Minister Mark Carney's goals of broadly reducing the number of new permanent residents to Canada while recruiting skilled workers and scholarships and boosting defense capabilities to lessen the dependence on the United States. So, in other words, we don't want to draft Canadians. We're gonna go out and snatch. We're gonna go out and snatch other recruits from other nations. If you want,
I mean, honestly, that sounds like something America would do. Not gonna lie.
Okay, in reality, the United States did have a policy, whereas if you volunteered to go into the U.S. military, okay, from a foreign nation,
You got citizenship, right?
They would vet you, okay, and they got citizenship after 4 years.
Yeah, my wife's grandfather, he's German. That's how he got. He immigrated to the United States through their military.
Yeah, it's we had that policy for a long time. In fact, one of my instructors, when I was going through what they call PLDC in Batholz, came in on that program through the Dominican Republic. Okay, and then he became a U.S. citizen and so forth. He was a.
I mean,
he was a
I honestly. I mean, I know this is going to sound very Starship Troopers of me, and that I know that book is a very satire. But I mean, I don't think it's a bad way to get citizenship. If you want to be a citizen of the United States, go in our military. How about you earn it? Let's earn it.
Yeah, I think that one of the problems that we have with people as citizens voting is there are too many people who have no skin in the game voting. Right?
What do you mean?
You're not. I'm voting, and I have nothing. I'm voting the treasury to myself. Right? When I haven't done anything, I'm not paying taxes. I have no skin in the game. Okay. Wasn't in the military, et cetera, right? I honestly think that if you served, right, you should be allowed to be a citizen. That's not saying that it's 100%. You can't be a traitor, right, like Benedict Arnold, right? I'm not saying that those don't exist, but I think that if you are going to vote in this country, you should have to pay taxes, at least, right? And I'm not talking about like be a landowner or anything else. I'm just saying just pay taxes.
You're not saying a poll tax, right?
No, not at all. All right, I'm just saying that if you're not paying federal income tax, then you don't vote in the federal government, right? If you want to vote in the state government because you pay sales tax, fine. But we don't have a national sales tax, right? Which, hey, I personally think that we should remove the income tax and have a national sales tax, but that's a separate issue. Okay.
So you're saying, hold on. So you're saying if you don't have federal income tax, you don't vote. Yes. So that means if you are not working, you don't vote?
If you don't pay taxes, you don't vote. You don't have. If you are independently wealthy, that you're paying federal taxes through like
Assets.
assets. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. Assets. Then you're still a citizen. You're paying it. But if you're just as part of the government dole from the federal perspective, then you're not allowed. You should not be allowed to vote in federal elections. That's
What
what I
about
believe.
people that can't work?
What about it?
Like, what if you have, like, I don't know, disabled people, old people, you know,
Well, okay.
people
Let
in
me.
padded wheelchairs and shit that can't fucking pay, that can't work? You know what I mean?
Well, all right. Let's differentiate certain. Let's say that somebody becomes disabled when they were working. All right. Those people had been granted, had been given that citizenship, so they still retain it. Right. Now, if we talk about the people who have never worked, I'm sorry, but you don't get the right to vote in the federal government. That's how I feel about it.
Oh my god, that is very Starship Troopers of you. Holy shit, MC.
Yeah,
It's a little.
I've always had that view. It is very Starship Troopers.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into it with you on birthright citizenship.
Um, I'm not against that. All right.
I mean, it is laid out in the Constitution. There's even an amendment about it.
Well, all right. First of all, it's laid out in the 14th Amendment, but the question is how is that interpreted? All right. Because what it was for and what it's used today for, I do recognize that there's a difference there.
Are you gonna say slavery? Because if you say slavery, I'm gonna come over there and I'm gonna find you.
But what? No. Well, it was written to
Yes.
enfranchise the slaves, but that's not my point. The one of the things that people don't know is slavery is not outlawed in America. Did you know that?
Don't we have an amendment about not doing slaves?
Nope. The amendment sits up there, has a caveat to it. If you read it, it says your rights and slavery cannot be taken away without due process. So technically, they could use due process to make you a slave. You a slave. All right. Now your children or grandchildren or anything else don't automatically become slaves because they didn't go through due process. But technically, the way the 13th Amendment is written, slavery is still legal.
I know, but the 13th Amendment abolished slavery.
No, it does slavery without due process. Read it. You'll be shocked. It's. I'm not for slaves. I don't believe that. Okay, I want people to understand that right now. Right, but the U.S. Constitution does not outright ban all slavery. Right, and their reasoning, I think that they're utilizing is because when you incarcerate an individual for criminal activity, all right, you are taking away their rights. And so you had to have some justification for taking away those rights for incarceration purposes. Unless you come up with a better solution.
Better solution to what? Citizenship?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the citizenship that we have right now is what it is. Right? I don't disagree with it. All right. The Supreme Court, whether it agrees with birthright citizenship or not, all right, or tries to further redefine it, okay, with the current things, it's going to be what it's going to be, and the ruling will come ruling. Personally, I think that the Supreme Court will come down because let's be honest. Let's say that you don't believe that people who just run across the border and have a child that child can't be a U.S. citizen. Okay. Well, that wasn't the rule for how long? All right. Um, are you going to sit there and go back to people who were born in the United States who are now 65, 70, 80 years old and say, because both of your parents were foreigners, you are no longer a U.S. citizen? Right? How many millions and millions of people is that going to affect within the United States? I don't think
I
that
mean,
there's any way that they can decide it that way. I just don't.
Yeah, I mean, from what I read about what the opening argument was, and SCOTUS essentially was like, but this is the Constitution, and it's still the Constitution today.
Mhm.
They were very much like, what are you doing?
Well, it's the argument going forward. It was, if you say going forward from this point, but it's going to have to be adjudicated through the Supreme Court. Whether we like it or not, the Supreme Court is an adjudicating court and determines whether or not something's constitutional or not, regardless of how I feel about it. Right?
Yeah, no, yeah.
I mean, that's our system. So, personally, is it how big of an issue is it? Is the question. I personally have never thought that birthright citizenship was a huge issue one way or the other. All right.
Well, I mean, like most people, my father is the product of immigrants, and they would, if we end birthright citizenship, like my dad goes back to, you know, Portugal or, Quebec. Either one. I don't know which one you're picking. Like, which one do you pick,
Well, if you want to go about it like that, my mother, right, was born in this country, but her my grandfather on the grandmother on that side, both came from Portugal through the Azores, right,
Yeah, same. Same.
and so yeah, that would say that my mother wasn't a U.S. citizen. Now, unfortunately, my mother is she's passed away, so it's not an issue for her per se. All right, but it could have been if you take a look at it from the perspective of how they're going to go about with this policy. Okay, all right. How are you going to prove things one way or another? Right. I don't. I've never had much of an issue with birthright citizenship. Now, when people talk about, well, that's an anchor baby, that's immaterial. Whether the child is a U.S. citizen or not doesn't change the fact that the parents aren't. Okay, at least not naturalized. Now, if you want to come back and say, well, then you have to let the parents in and the rest of the extended family and all this other stuff. No, you don't. Right? That's an immigration policy. That has nothing to do with birthright citizenship. Right? It's not that I don't understand their logic. I just don't agree with it per se.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I
But
understand.
but I'm not saying they're completely wrong. It is something that's in the court system. I can't see the court choosing any other way. All right. I really think it's just an argument that's not going anywhere. More Canadian news. Prime Minister announces Canada has achieved NATO's 2% defense spending target. In an increasingly dangerous and divided world, this is from Halifax, Nova Scotia, but I don't have an author. All right. Canada must be prepared to defend ourselves and our values, to secure our sovereignty, and to stand with our allies. For too long, Canada did not sufficiently build that strength. By 2014, Canada's defense spending has fallen to just 1% of our GDP. This must be Carney, the Prime Minister, speaking. Half of our obligations as a NATO member. The world has changed, and Canada must change with it. That is why 6 weeks after the election, Canada's new government has released an ambitious plan to rebuild, rearm, and reinvest in the Canadian Armed Forces. The core objectives is to achieve NATO's 2% defense spending target this year. Okay. Um, okay. I hear what you're doing, but you do realize that they achieved this target after their GDP fell by 5%. So
Yeah.
so did they rearm, or did, did their economy crash to the point that, look, we've met our obligations?
I don't know what the fuck's going on up there, dude.
I heard I heard somebody make the comment, and I'm not saying this is true, but they said that they have more generals than they have tanks.
I mean, that's probably a fair assessment.
I, I know Britain has more admirals than they have ships of
Yes.
ships. I mean,
That is wild right there.
I mean, I'm just pointing out that there's a reason I say that the U.S. is NATO. Okay.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I, Okay, you've got, even now to this day, I think they estimate that the Russians have approximately 15,000 main battle tanks. Okay, the United States has 10,000. We have 10,000 M1, our main battle tank. 10,000 approximately. Now, granted, that's in various theaters, all right, but we have 10,000 main battle tanks. You know how many Germany has?
How many?
300.
Wow.
You know how many are operational? Fully operational. I'll use that.
Probably like 30 of those.
50.
I was close.
You were. So, yeah, our NATO allies are not. This is different, okay, than when it was when I was there, right? When I was there in the 80s, right? They were serious about their defense. The Germans were, and the Germans were doing things actively, right? We went on several exercises with them, okay, and aside from the fact that one of their ration requirements in the field is a case of beer per person.
I mean,
Aside from that, all right, they were professional, all right, and they were serious about they took their defense seriously across the board, right? Uh, what they become after the wall fell, right, is two different things. And the
well, I mean,
Germany
you, I
today
mean,
was something that was different.
I mean, you had East Germany, you had West Germany. I think that fucked them up permanently.
Yeah, yeah, I would have to agree with you there.
Yeah, I think that really fucked them up. Like to the point where we can't get back to where we were. We have to go either extremely to the left or extremely to the right. And there's no leeway. There's no, middle ground. If you get what I'm saying.
Well, I think part of the problem with that is that you don't have people like you and me talking about these issues, and I mean that from the sense of, if I try to talk to somebody on the left, all right, there are very few people I can talk to because they don't listen and they're not honest. They're not interested in honest debate. They're interested in spewing, um, talking points, right?
I mean, to be fair, it depends on what we're talking about, but what we're talking about right now, you know, I don't, I don't know. It just seems more
Well, we're not
an
having
of an
you and I have a dialogue.
yeah.
There is no dialogue being taken place anymore, across the board. See, my problem with Canada goes way back. People forget this. Right? I've never liked the Canadians, right? And
Yeah.
it's not just because Canadians are insufferable, right? Which they are. But the reason I've never liked the Canadians goes way back to the fact that for the longest time you can buy Cuban cigars in Canada across the border. Now, why was that?
Yeah.
Because they refused to recognize an embargo, right, on Cuba when
Well, hell, that's
Castro
why
was in
you
charge.
that's how you could get to Cuba is through Canada.
Right.
It's
So,
the same with North Korea. You go through Canada to get to North Korea.
yeah, so the Canadians, when people talk about the Canadians are our friends and their thing, like, look, the Canadians aren't our friends as much as people want them to believe, right? They have their own view, and it's their own country. I'm not disagreeing that they can't set their own policies. But if you're going to come back and try and claim that you're a great ally of the United States and then stick a finger in our eye every opportunity internationally, well, I'm going to disagree with you. That's just the way it is. Well, just like I disagree with this. All right. For people who don't know and think that I'm just one-sided, Trump yanks millions from Catholic charities amid Pope feud. The Trump administration has abruptly canceled a multi-million-dollar contract with a Catholic charity that that houses and cares for migrant children. Amid the president's feud with Pope Leo XIV, the Catholic Church charities of the Archdiocese of Miami has helped provide vital services to unaccompanied minors for more than 60 years, but could now shut down within a matter of months after the administration canceled an $11 million federal contract. The decision comes amid tensions between President Donald Trump and Pope Leo.
So this is one of the things I hate, one of the many things I hate about Donald Trump. If you do not go along with what he wants, he will try to destroy you in the worst way possible. That is not a leader. That is a bully.
Well,
And
to say that
this
he
him
isn't petty, you would be wrong.
this isn't being petty. This is being cruel, especially to those people who need the charity. Like, why are you beefing with the Pope? The Pope is not a politician. That's not his fucking job. The Pope's job is to spread the gospel, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like,
Well.
I don't know. And then Trump having the audacity to post an image of him as Jesus or the Pope or whoever the fuck he thinks he was, and then he deletes it and was like, "Well, I thought it was a doctor." Bullshit. What I'm calling bullshit on that. And then he posts another AI image of him and Jesus. I'm like, "Isn't this idolatry?" I can never pronounce this
Idolatry.
word. Yes, isn't that what this is? Like, I really like him as Jesus or him as the Pope, whatever.
Mhm.
I, come the fuck on. Come on.
I can't disagree with you in that regard.
Like, no, seriously, like, if you don't go along with what I'm going to do, what I'm doing or what I'm saying or the bullshit I'm spewing, I'm going to attack you personally and I'm going to be as cruel as possible about it.
I think that there's a difference in there, right? I'm not agreeing that I don't disagree that his some of his actions are just way over the top without thinking because they're reactionary, right? And I do think, like you said, he takes things personally, okay? Um, because that's the nature of New Yorkers. All right. Whether people want to claim that he's a Floridian, look, he's a typical New Yorker with a typical New Yorker attitude, with a kind of bombastic, look at me, everything's great, I am the world, right? that's that's who he is. Okay. I disagree with your assertion about the Pope because the Vatican is its own state. Okay, it's its own nation state. People don't
I
know
am not going to have an argument with you about the Catholic Church.
that. All
I
right,
agree with you about the institution of said Catholic Church.
right. I'm just saying that the
I
Pope himself, though, is not just a leader of the gospel, right? From their perspective, he is also the leader of the state of the Vatican State. He
the
just
Pope is a dude who is the Pope is a man who is disagreeing with the war in Iran.
okay. He can disagree with it, right? But the problem is you don't do that by just one-sidedly mocking, come out and do it. He would have been better off staying out of politics completely, but he did it one-sidedly and pointedly.
The Pope said he's not into politics or he's not a
He may have
politician.
claimed that, but but his comments were one-sided. You can't.
That he's not for war in Iran because Jesus, God bless the peacemakers. I don't know.
That's not the only thing that he said. He blamed Trump for it. All right, completely, while ignoring what the Iranians did. Okay, what kicked off in your mind? I got a question. What kicked off our attack on this latest attack on
The latest attack,
Iran?
like,
Yeah.
you mean years ago
No, no, no.
or
Just a few months ago. This last attack with Israel, with our attack with Israel. What kicked that off?
I don't know. Palestine, Iran is backing Palestine.
No. The reason we did it is because when we went into negotiations with them, they they claimed that they had enough enriched uranium to make 12 bombs, and they were going to use
Okay.
them. All right. Well, at that point, whether you believe them or not, right? Are you going to take the risk, right? And so at that point is when they said, okay, we're going in. That's when it happened. All right. to ignore what the Iranians were doing, though. And look, I'm not, when it comes to the Catholic Church, and both good and bad, right? I'm not going to argue about that with you either, right? But I do want to point out that the Pope isn't just a religious leader; he's also a leader of a nation state. And when he makes a comment like that, and you're looking at it from both perspectives, not just a someone who should be spreading the gospel, which I agree with totally. That's the lane he should have stayed in. All right, he had
I'm
no.
confused. I'm confused as to where he said anything other than decrying the war against Iran as being political. Where else was he being
Well, the
political?
fact, well, that's but by the fact that he only mentioned the United States by name. He did not call out Iran's transgression.
Iran against Israel.
No, Iran against threatening the United States. The Iran.
Threatening. I think he didn't you read his homily? I mean, he didn't mention Iran by he didn't mention anybody by name on his Easter homily. Let me just say that. But
Yeah, I saw his Easter homily. I don't. Like I said, the thing is the world doesn't function. First of all, and I have to be 100% upfront. I don't have a problem with bombing Iran. Okay, I want people to understand this because Iran are a bunch of warmongering lunatics. Okay,
that sounds familiar.
and you can say what you want about Trump and everything else. Trump is the only one who's actually stood up against them. But when it comes to the Iranians, I've had a problem with the
Yay.
Iranians going back, all right, really to 1979, right? Because they've done nothing but attack Americans and kill Americans since then. All right, Reagan. I don't know if you probably weren't alive, right? You definitely wouldn't remember this. We put Marines, 200 Marines in Lebanon in an attempt to create a buffer between Israel and the PLO in Lebanon, right? And what happened was is the United States, all right, started getting some of our Marines were started getting shot at, right? In a response to the Marines getting shot at, they called for support from the United States Navy, specifically Iowa class battleships, Iowa and the New Jersey, which were off the coast,
Yeah.
which then opened fire with their main guns. now, now, for people who don't know this, the main gun is a 16-inch shell the size of a Volkswagen, basically. All right. At which,
So
go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So, in response, there was a terrorist suicide bomb attack, all right, on the barracks, which killed 49 Marines. All right. All of that was funded and organized by the Islamic Republican Guard, the IRGC, which is basically the radical military arm from Iran. Now, go ahead. What were you going to say?
So you're upset that the Pope only called out the United States and not Iran or Israel for what's going on in the Middle East right now.
I think you've got to call out all bad actors if you're trying to maintain a non-political stance. If you're trying to say, look, we need to have peace. Look, for example, one of the things that I think people miss is what peace is. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Okay, peace is the absence of threat. To say that the Iranians are not threatening people and so forth, even their own people, belies the facts and stuff on the ground. Did you hear the Pope make a comment about the killing 30,000 of their own people during the riots prior to us going in?
Say it again.
When the Iranians were killing the protesters, and they killed like 30,000 protesters, did the Pope make a comment?
Was he the Pope then?
Yes,
I
he
don't
was.
remember.
When the Christians in Syria just recently got massacred, right? In I think Aleppo. Did the Pope make a comment?
Uh-huh.
No, he didn't. Okay, so you can't. If you're going to make a comment about peace, be consistent. That's my comment to Pope Leo. I don't think Pope Leo is a bad person, and I do believe that. Let's be perfectly frank. American media, regardless of which side you pick, all right, has a lot of issues with being totally upfront and frank with what's going on.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because the Pope's American. I don't know.
I mean, the Pope obviously was born. I think it was in Chicago, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Um, and he's the first Pope from the United States, right? That's ever been a part of that. That you can say that about a lot of countries. So I don't think we've had a Mexican Pope yet. I don't think we've had a British Pope yet. So from that standpoint, and I do think that Americans, all right, do what American media does do these things, but all media, whether you're talking about the ones on the right like Newsmax or Fox News, or what you're talking about on the left, right, with CNN and the rest of that, there is a problem with being accurate with what you're saying. Okay, there's one thing to say, okay, objectivity. Objectivity is subjective to a point, right? But when you leave out meaningful facts that people, which would sway people from one emotion to another, and all you're trying to do is do an emotional tirade, right, or an emotional outlet, just trying to sway emotion completely, then you're not trying to tell people news. What you're trying to do is you're trying to propagandize, whether
Well, I don't think that.
positive.
I think. I mean, I know the Vatican released a statement saying that the Pope is uh, for disarmament of nuclear or and peaceful resolution.
Right. Okay. Well, how are you going to have a peaceful resolution with the Iranians?
I don't fucking know. He's the Pope. I don't think that's his. I don't think that's his job to know.
Then he shouldn't. Then he shouldn't say, well, if you don't know what to do when you're not trying to get involved in things,
Okay,
right?
but it is his right, and
I didn't
I
say
think.
that. I didn't say that it wasn't his right to say what he said. Like I said, I'm just pointing out the fact that it would have been received differently from the right, and notice this word. It would have been received differently from the right propagandists if he had mentioned both sides. But
I
he
think it
did.
would have been detrimental if he didn't say anything at all.
I don't disagree with that statement either. Okay.
This is like when the Pope supported the Nazis way back in the day, and we came back and during Nuremberg and tried to get the Pope's or the Vatican's support in the Nuremberg trials, and we basically held it against them that you supported the Nazis, or supposedly you didn't help the Nazis, but you did.
The fascists. Yeah.
So you've got to help us now. That's what it kind of feels like.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I think that the current Pope, right, and this is from an American perspective, my personal opinion as an American, right? I think the Pope has the interests, just like I think, and he's not the only one, has the interest of Europe more than he has the interest of the United States in line. And he shouldn't be looking at the United States for at U.S. interest. I'm not saying that he should, okay, but I think it seems to me that the way the Pope talks, right, it's I'm listening to another European talking about the bad America, poke in the eye. Um, did is what Trump did here, right, where he pulls funding for the Catholic charities. Um, is that a good thing? Is Trump right to do that? Hell no. Well, excuse me, heck no. Let me be a good little boy. Right? But No, and that is one of the problems with Trump, right? Is he does have a thin skin. He takes everything as a slight directed at him. All right, right or wrong. And the problem with that viewpoint is it comes across that he thinks he is America. Okay, Trump comes across as if what he is he encompasses America.
I
Whatever
think
he says is American. Whatever he says isn't American or anti-American is anti-American.
I think the Pope puts the onus on the United States because he believes that the United States is essentially supposed to be the arbiter of the world.
So we're back to, you think the Pope believes that the United States should be acting as the world police?
Like, no, seriously, that Iran wouldn't understand, or that the Middle East wouldn't understand, that we as Americans, the United States government, have the capabilities to understand. Because I mean, you said it yourself that Iran is just a bunch of savages, right?
No, no, I never said they were savages. No,
Or
I
or
said
they
they
were
are a full nation state.
or they're something to be dealt with, or they deserve to be bombed,
No,
whatever.
they need to be bombed. They do need to be bombed because they are the
Because they're
destabilizing
not
agent.
like us,
No,
because they're not.
not because they're not like us, because they constantly attack us. Not just economically. They're not just, okay, we're gonna disagree with you economically. They literally go out to kill Americans. All right, in every way, shape, or form. They are
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
okay. So that's my problem with the Iranians. Right? My problem isn't their oh they're just trying to find their own way in the world and blah all that. No, they're not just doing that. They are an aggressive expansionist nation. All right, in a region with a lot of those guys. I don't think that uh, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia or is any different. However,
I mean, you can say the same thing about Israel trying to expand.
yes and no. Right, you're not necessarily
Yeah,
wrong about
yeah,
that, but
I'm not wrong.
like I said, yes and no. They're not as expansionist in the sense. The problem with Israel, and I'm going to catch flack for this. The problem with Israel today is Zionism. Okay, Zionism means they want to take back everything that was part of the quote unquote Holy Land from time immemorial. Right?
This is the last thing I'm going to say about the Pope. I think the Pope expects better from us as Americans.
That might be true. That might be an
I
accurate
think
assessment.
he expects us to be better than what we're doing right now.
I don't think that that's possible at the moment, but that's because I don't think the world is the way the Pope envisions it, right? That the world actually is. But I would agree with your statement. He does expect that from
This is going to go the way of Vietnam with Iran if we continue.
us. No, it won't. I don't
Yeah,
think.
we're going to nuke them. Yeah, we'll nuke them before that happens, right?
Well, we won't put ground forces in. Right?
Yeah,
That
and it'll
we,
be another wasted fucking war like in,
no,
2003.
no, not necessarily. Right?
For no fucking reason at all. We didn't even get
They
attacked.
threatened us with nuclear weapons. Stop this nonsense, and they had killed our troops
They
and
threatened us with
continuing.
this. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like that fucking excuse that Afghanistan had nuclear weapons and
No,
that's
that
why
was
we had
Iraq.
to
That was
or
Iraq
Iraq.
had weapons of mass destruction, which they did have,
Yeah,
but that's
and
we're
they
not talking
didn't.
about. Yes, they did.
And they lied.
Well, hold on, hold on. They didn't lie. Okay, they didn't have the stockpiles that they claimed. Okay, but they
Yeah, they
didn't lie.
lied.
No,
They lied.
no. Who's they?
The government. They
Okay.
lied.
Do you think the government lied? So, what evidence do you have that they lied?
We
That
didn't
they
find the
knowingly told you a falsehood?
Okay, my
Knowingly.
peepaw, listen, my peepaw didn't run moonshine to fucking for me to be a bootlicker and trust the
I'm
goddamn
not.
government,
Look,
okay?
you're when it comes to trusting the government, you and I are in the same wavelength. Okay.
So I'm not gonna sit there and be like, yeah, They didn't. Iran threatened us with fucking nuclear whatever the fuck. Okay, and next.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. I'm. They're not They're
Then
not.
why aren't we okay? Then why aren't we nuking them right now? If the threat is so imminent, if the threat is so dangerous, why aren't we nuking them right now?
Because they're trying to avoid quote unquote the innocent civilian casualties.
If they were trying to avoid innocent civilian casualties, why the fuck did they bomb a school?
That was a mistake. Did you know
It's
that?
just like Bill Clinton.
No,
It's
no,
Bill
no, no, no,
Clinton.
no, 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 no,
Hold
no.
on, it's Bill Clinton and the fucking pill factory all over
No,
again.
it's not.
It absolutely is.
It is
Oh,
not.
it's fine, and and the government's like, it's fine, it's fine. You know, I'm sorry, it was a mistake. Oh my god, I'm so
I'm
sorry.
impressed that you brought
Bullshit.
up. I'm impressed that you brought up the pill factory. Right?
Because it's the same shit.
No, it's not.
It is
Let me
absolutely
ask you a
yes.
question.
This okay. The school and the pill. I'm sorry, I did that, but you know, war is hell, casualties, blah blah
No, no,
blah,
no, 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 no,
on
no,
and
no,
on and
no,
on.
no, 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 no. Because you have to. Where I draw the line, where you and I differentiate, is intent. Okay. When we hit that school, and we did hit a girls' school. Okay. And the reason it was on the target list, and to say that we didn't hit that building intentionally is not accurate. We intentionally hit that building. All right. The problem last year, that was a headquarters bunker for their command and control. Nobody had updated it to say, "Oh, this was a girls' school." They were using this on a target list that had been created. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay. The reason is because this thing's saying that it dropped off. When Bill Clinton bombed that pill factory, right? Which, like I said, I'm amazed you remember that.
Hell yeah.
but
Even though I was a child in the 80s, you know, 90s, whatever, I did the intelligent thing and actually did the research,
yeah,
you know, on my own and looked up things and, you know,
when they attacked that, they had already determined it was a pill factory. The intelligence had told them it was a pill factory, and even worse, Bill Clinton had notified. This is for people who don't know. This was in Libya. All right, he had notified them that we were going to attack. All right, prior to us going in, he literally had called them up and told them they were coming. Right, the intent is different.
yeah, I believe that as much as I believe them saying, yeah, we didn't know it was a girls' school. I don't believe that for a second.
I don't see a purpose for bombing a girls' school. All right, that they would have any kind of reason for wanting to bomb it from from this perspective. I can make a case of why Bill Clinton wanted to bomb the pill factory. I can't make that same leap. All right, if for lack of anything, that for the girls' school that we hit. All right, and I know part of that's because I've been. I'll be honest with you. I know how I've been in the intelligence field. I've been in that world. I know what we do when we do things right, and I know how at times we make mistakes. For example, when people talk about the Gulf of Tonkin, right? In the Gulf of Tonkin, the attack on the American ships, the first for the on the first day was 100%. Right? We have bullets. We have the things that they utilize. Right? The 20 millimeter cannons that they use. We have shell fragments and stuff that hit those ships. We have the bullet holes, etc. The one that happened a couple days later, okay, which they had claimed was an attack, was not. Okay, it was not an attack. Was that known by the Navy at the time? The answer is no. Right, but because it all got wrapped into this whole thing, all right, it all came back into, oh, you were, because of how mistakes were made. Okay, they went with it, and even the upper command with Johnson and McNamara, two well-known names that I despise. All right, they believed that the attack was real. Now, McNamara had indications of, well, the intelligence in this is not as solid as we would like, but he said, I don't care, we're going with it anyway. So that's a little bit of a difference. Once again, it's intent. It's one thing to say that you were wrong about something and you made an assessment about something that were wrong. Okay. Versus intentionally going after it. That's how I differentiate it.
Dude,
That's just me.
this feels like the argument about Waco.
Eh,
It feels like, did the federal government kill those people or not? In my opinion, I feel like David Koresh killed those fucking people, not the government. But that's just me
well,
because
yeah.
I know the ins and outs and everything about David Koresh because I find people like that very fascinating. I want to know how they tick. I want to know why they think that they could do these kinds of things to very vulnerable people. I want to know how that's done. So the fact that people blame, like, sure, did the government fuck up? Absolutely. Yes, they sure did. But David Koresh ultimately was the ringleader, the one who was like, no, we're not releasing these children. No, we're not releasing these women. We're all gonna fucking die here because I'm God or whatever gay shit he said.
Well, I would agree with you once again. The intent was different.
So
With
this argument, that's
you and I agree about Waco. All right,
yeah.
we're on the same side.
But that's what this argument feels like.
In some ways, I guess you're probably right. It's just that I wasn't what I am today. Back in the day when I was serving, all right, I wasn't anti-European. Today, I can say 100% I'm anti-European. 100%. Right? I would rather deal with Mexico. Right? I don't dislike Mexico. I think it's a failed state, but that's a separate issue. Right? Do the tribal stuff. Let's get on to this next story. This one's good too. Two tourists are facing felony charges after they were spotted road tripping across Florida with a dead alligator strapped to the roof of their car.
What the fuck?
Witnesses first reported seeing the alligator-adorned vehicle as it traveled near the Walt Disney World Resort outside Orlando.
I mean, what? They're gonna eat it? Like, what the fuck?
Police license plate readers subsequently tracked the auto as it moved through other Central Florida locales. At some point, the suspects covered the alligator with a white sheet in response to being warned by multiple parties that possessing an alligator is illegal in the state of Florida.
Wow.
you guys are idiots. All right. The car eventually was pulled over in Melbourne, which is a city in Florida, around 7 p.m. by the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission's officer. The suspects, Anthony Boole and Mark Chadwick, reportedly admitted to taking a roadkill alligator and wanting to take it to a taxidermy office to have it stuffed even after the warning.
It's wild.
That's like put a little hood ornament. What's your hood ornament?
I mean, we had a guy around here who had a buck skull as his hood ornament for forever. So none of that surprised me.
All right, this is I'm mentioning this because of a single individual. All right. Representative Jimmy Gomez, member of Eric Swalwell's Cool Kids clique, accused of kissing a much younger staffer. Former Representative Eric Swalwell is not the only member of Congress drawing attention for his activities off the House floor, with sources telling the Post that Representative Jimmy Gomez, a married member of Swalwell's Cool Kids clique, all right, was spotted surreptitiously I can't say that word today, surreptitiously kissing a much younger congressional age in the summer of 2023. All right. Swalwell fell in with Gomez, a fellow Golden State Democrat, and Senator Ruben Gallego, right, Democrat, while the three were still in the House, sources said. All right. I don't like Ruben Gallego, or to be real upfront about it. This is the only reason I'm mentioning him, right? But nothing I've seen, right, makes me think that he was involved in sleeping with subordinates. Okay, right? I don't like the guy. I wish he had never been elected as a senator. I think he's a backstabbing little weasel, right? I'm not.
Swalwell's the guy who on the rape charges, right?
Yeah, he got accused of sexual assault and rape by several former staffers of his. Right. He's
Yeah.
also the guy who was sleeping with a Chinese spy, and it, all right, named Feng Feng. Right. And when they tried to come to arrest her, he basically he had gotten word that she was on the way, and she fled back to communist China. Right. That was years ago, 20 years ago. Right. But but Eric Swalwell has never shut his mouth. Right. And he was protected in the House of Representatives back at the time when the Queen of Congress, Nancy Pelosi, right, was in charge. Right. So she stopped all investigations into Swalwell. Right. Now,
I mean, that sounds familiar.
now the question I have for you is this, right? Because all these, you know, how do I put this? Seemly, I guess, unseemly actions by Swalwell as a member of Congress. These people are talking about something that's 15 years ago. The question I have is do you believe the women?
I don't believe there should be a statute of limitations on rape or sexual assault. Um, fucking kids, any of that shit. Like, I don't know, man. I think those. I haven't looked into Swalwell, to be honest. I haven't. I know that he's been like there are accusations, and I mean like Congress is not. I mean like Congress, Senate, the president, all of it. It's just bad. I don't know. Like I don't know. I've read the Epstein files, and and you're probably going to have a problem with this, but that's just me. Donald Trump was mentioned in the Epstein files 38,000 times. That's
Okay.
more than Jesus in the Bible.
Uh,
And the shit that's in there. He alleged. This is all alleged. He's fucking kids.
uh, there is an allegation. There was an allegation, right, that was laid out in the FBI reporting that this woman, who was supposedly 13 at the time, right, was giving him a blowjob.
Yep.
Right. However, that allegation is provably false. Okay. So that for for example, one of the problems that they have with that allegation is the time period she talked about him being there. He couldn't have been there. He was literally somewhere else, and there's proof of that, hard documented proof. All
So
right.
and my other so my thing is, if these things didn't happen, and people are calling him a pedophile, like outright,
Mm-hmm.
just calling him a pedophile, and we know that Trump is very litigious. Why isn't he suing these people for defamation?
He will.
You
Guarantee
know
he's going
why?
to.
Do you know why?
He's going to. Trust me. You think that he isn't doing it right now? There's a reason he's not doing it right now. Right?
So as soon as he does,
Like for example,
he's not.
the
He's
13-year-old. I'll give you an example of something. The 13-year-old, when you talk about the defamation, right? One of the one of the things that you can't do, right, is you cannot go after um, when you're in the branches that you're in, right? You as a public person, you cannot go after an enemy, or I shouldn't say enemy. The word I'm looking for is political opponent, All right, and those are the people calling him. Now, the other people who are making that claim, all right, for example, the 13-year-old. The 13-year-old made this claim, right? All right, who's now supposedly an adult, but that person no longer exists. All right, that person has since died, right, long ago. All right, so you can't go after her. All right, I'm not going to go into other aspects of that part of it because I looked into this as well, right? Because when you hear somebody saying, "Look, you did this with a 13-year-old," you got to sit up there and investigate it. I know that's that's a really loose standard for investigation. But if you hear something like that, you have got to go and investigate it. I'm not going to argue that point. Okay, so you got to investigate to find out what was really going on. If you look at the Epstein files and find out that they did investigate it and that they corroborated that he was literally somewhere else during that time frame and couldn't even be there, all right, that this person's claims were false, all right, then you don't have a case to go after. Okay. Um, when it comes to Donald Trump, all right, being named so many times in the Epstein files, first of all, there's a lot of reasons people get named. How many of those names
I mean,
are there?
and don't forget, his wife saying that, we didn't know him, and
Well,
you
no,
know,
no.
we
Okay, you're
didn't.
talking about Melania. When Melania said
Yeah,
that.
that was one hell of a press conference, and I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
But
I can't,
but
I can't disagree with you there.
Democrat, Republican, musician, actor, actress, doesn't matter. If you are in there and proven, and the other problem is we are not releasing the rest of the Epstein files.
Yeah, let me ask you a question.
We are not bringing anybody
I am,
to
I am,
court.
I agree with you. Now, my
Like
question, I have a
even
question for
Donald
you.
Trump, I like even fucking Donald. Like we should bring. I'm sorry. Like you
Go
are
on.
not going to. You're not going to convince me
Okay.
that he's not a part of the it's so funny. I remember years ago when all these Republicans came out and said that the Democrats were eating kids, and it was this big giant cabal
You're
of
talking about Pizzagate.
these Democrats eating kids and fucking kids and all this shit. And now, it's actually them. It's the people screaming. It's like every accusation is a confession.
Well, hold on. Let's go on to this because let's explore this a little bit. I got a question for you. Right? Why do you think the rest of the Epstein files have been released? And I agree with you. We have not released the Epstein files. We have not released them all.
Because a lot of people, a lot of very powerful people will be implicated a lot, and more kids, more survivors, more this, more that, more pain in the ass for the Department of Justice. They don't want to fuck with it
Okay.
because of these powerful people.
I don't think that's the reason. Okay. I think the reason that the Justice Department is not pursuing this goes back to why the plea deal that Epstein made early on, way early on, right, for this latest round, why he got a slap on the wrist. Okay, this has all the hallmarks of a CIA operation, and they don't want to admit that the CIA ran this operation, that the federal government was pimping out 13-year-olds.
So everybody is in trouble except for Trump.
No, I don't say that. I don't think that everything is in trouble. I think you need to investigate it. There's a lot of people that were mentioned in those files, right? For example, there's a lot of mentioning of Bill Clinton in
Yeah, I know. Fuck him. He can go to the gulag too
there.
with Trump.
Hold on.
Him and Trump can fucking hold hands and go to the gulag together.
Hold on. And I think that he was that there's nefarious things that went on with Bill Clinton. I suspect that that's probably true. Okay. Um, I also think that when you go through that file, whether you like it or not, you we there is no evidence there. You're not seeing any real evidence. Okay. There's no, if there's film of President Trump or a film of President Clinton with a underage naked girl or boy, don't care which, right? I would agree, hang them up by their freaking thumbs, right, until they're dead. I have no, all right. I'm talking about put them
Then
back in
why
jail
won't then why won't the administration do the right thing and
because they
release
don't want to,
files?
because they don't want to out the CIA, because they don't want to out who else was involved in that they've now got blackmail material for. The FBI is blackmailing people currently, all right, that were also in there. People forget this wasn't just in the United States. They had people from all over the world. All right,
Yeah, I know.
all
Like
right.
Prince Andrew. They actually arrested his ass.
Please.
They let him go, but they arrested his ass. They stripped him of his princess points. They stripped his title. They didn't hang him. I don't agree with that. They should have fucking shot him in the street like a dog.
Yeah, and they have pictures that were leaked of him with these girls, right, with these underage kids. All right, I agree with you. They still
I'm
didn't do
sorry.
anything
Like
to him.
no, and I agree, and it's wrong, and it's fucking wrong.
I don't.
We need to hold these people accountable. The Trump administration needs, and the fact that they're not, there's something.
You're not going to get
There
me to
is. It's
argue.
not. It's not the CIA. It's not just the CIA. I'm telling you, if it was Obama, if it was Biden, if it was Clinton, there would be a full-blown investigation.
Obviously not for
Everything
Clinton because
everything
there
would be
wasn't.
released. Everything would be released. It would just be full-blown fucking chaos if it was just them. It's not just
Oh,
them.
no, I don't disagree with you. Like I said, I think, however, what it is, it's just two aspects to play. One, I think it was a CIA operation, and two, the CIA is using this as blackmail material, all right, um, for the other operations. People forget Epstein, all right, was given a slap on the wrist when the CIA told the DOJ that he was an asset.
I know the
That's
Trump
documented.
administration. I know. I know. And the Trump administration saying that if we release all this shit, that this everything will collapse. And you know what I say to that? Good. It deserves to collapse.
I agree.
Good.
I agree with you. I want
So
all the
there
Epstein files released. I want it people to understand. Okay, the CIA. We use the term CIA. All right, and the CIA is an organization. The problem with the CIA as an organization is there are, because of how security works, all right, where you have sensitive compartmented information, right, which means you have compartmentalized operations. Just because you say this is a CIA operation doesn't mean that everybody in the CIA knows what is going on with this person in the CIA or that person in the CIA, right? Because it's compartmentalized. I think that the CIA right now has a number of rogue individuals running it. And of all the people that you talk about that you say you want to see hung, I want to see these officials, all right, within the CIA. And we know that they're there because they went to to the DOJ on Epstein's behalf and told him he was an asset. I want to know who that person was, and I want to know why, okay, that person hasn't been charged. I
you
want
know what?
all of these
You
bastards that are part of that group that are running rogue little elements everywhere. I want them outed and I want them freaking fumigated.
I would put my entire life savings that it has to do with Donald Trump. I'm sorry. It does.
If it had been to Donald Trump, why didn't Biden release it?
Yeah, why didn't Obama release it? Why did
Well, why
let's
did
go way
Obama?
back. Let's go way back.
Right,
Why not?
right, exactly. So I don't think that that's the issue. I think it's the CIA. I don't think it's Trump per se. I think the reason is because it's a CIA operation and they're trying to cover for these people, and they're still doing it. And what's more is if you hear about, let's be perfectly frank, if you hear that the CIA was running an operation where they're peeping out American children, right? Do you think that that this was only one operation that was doing it? Then how many other operations were the CIA running where they're doing this?
I'm not saying that Donald Trump is the ringleader. I'm not saying that he is the leader of this cabal because Donald Trump couldn't fucking find his way out of a plastic bag, for fuck's sake. I believe that he doesn't. Same with Obama, same with Biden. They didn't want societal collapse or whatever stupid, dumb, gay shit they want to say. They don't want their system to collapse when it absolutely needs to collapse. If the CIA is pimping out kids to wealthy billionaires, whoever they are, that system needs to be eradicated. And I don't care the collateral damage. If it's the entire government, good.
I don't
Fuck
disagree with you.
them.
I don't disagree with you.
So like I don't know. I really do. I honestly, I swear, like I can't get around it. I just can't. I can't fucking I can't get around it. I can't support a man who's just like, "Nah, we're not going to do this." No, the administration, well, we're not going to do this because of X, Y, and Z. No, fuck you. I'm never going to support you. That is one of the number one reasons why I can't with this guy. I can't.
I'm not going to argue with you. I think that I don't think that the Epstein files are the only things that are out there. I disagree with what decisions are being made about the Epstein files, which is one of the reasons why, if I had my druthers right now, I think you need to take what's her name, right, who's in charge of the national security, uh, the former congressman from Hawaii.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I can't think of her name right now.
I know who you're talking about though.
And I think she needs to be put back under oath and then pulled in front of Congress. And I think these things all need to come out. Okay, I agree with you. Right? They don't want to do it now, which is one of the reasons why, if it was up to me, I would call a convention of states and put an end to this nonsense off the bat, because I think that's the only way you're going to get it. I honestly think that's the only method that we have right now that's going to sit up there and be able to put a stop to this shit.
Yeah, which is wild because we subpoenaed, like it's been subpoenaed. You have to give us these documents, and they're like, no, we're not going to do it. And there's no repercussions to these actions. That's the other problem. There have been no repercussions for actions, for these actions,
You're
period.
not going to get me to disagree with you.
Like I don't I don't fucking know, dude. Like why do and like taxes, right? Why the fuck do I have to pay taxes to pedophiles? I'm paying a bunch of pedophiles running the government. I don't want to pay taxes anymore. I'm done.
Now you sound like Mad Dodge. But taxation
No,
is theft.
no, look, listen, I ain't going that fucking far. I ain't going that fucking far. But when the whole fucking government is just a bunch of pedophiles and fucking bullshit and funding a war that I don't agree with, why do I have to pay for that shit?
Well, just because you don't agree with the war doesn't mean that the war isn't necessary anymore. And the war,
It's not. It is totally unnecessary. It's
you're,
Vietnam all over again.
no, it's not.
It absolutely is.
So
We have to contain communism. Stop.
hey, the reason we were containing this has nothing to do with communism either.
I know, but that was the reason why we, went
That
to
was
Vietnam.
back when we were told that we had to be the leader of the world. And
we got to be Team America, and we're doing the same thing again, just for oil.
Well, no, we aren't. This will lead to, whether you like it or not, one of the advantages, one of the things that this will lead to, is a return of American isolationism. All right, and that is, I'm not going to say for the world's perspective, that's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for the world, because the world is screwed up. Okay, but from an American perspective, I'm all for it. Believe it or not, the rest of the world needs to grow the f up, and the only way that they change is through pain, massive amounts of pain that they create for themselves. That's my view on this, right, on that part.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
Well, I've got an appointment to get to, but it was great chatting with you, MC, as always. Okay. We had a great debate. Awesome.
I don't know if it was a debate so much. We just explored different disagreements of where we disagree.
That's true. I had a great time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, enjoy it, dude. got 2 more stories left that I will go through for the folks out there listening. The final 2 stories are animal stories. The first one, Southport, the police department, North Carolina. See you later, alligator. For the second time this week, the Southport officers in Southport APS assisted to safely capture a large alligator. This afternoon around 4 p.m., we received a call about a large alligator struck by a car in a drive-through at the Truist Bank on Howell Street in Brunswick County. Sheriff's Office APS was en route and arrived at the scene. The BCSO, and Southport's APS worked to free the alligator from underneath the car in the parking lot. We secured the perimeter and waited for the North Carolina wildlife to arrive. They arrived and determined that the alligator would need to be relocated. No kidding! This is not a surprise that you need to relocate the alligator from underneath a car. I think that that's probably a problem. And the final story of the day. From the BBC, Otter Mayhem after challenging beast sneaks into a garden center. Vets had to be called, right, to help capture an otter after it staged a daring daylight break-in at a garden center in South Scotland. CCTV footage shows the moment the animal sneaked unnoticed into the premises of Matt Williamson's and Son in Clossburn, north of Dumfries, all right, on Monday's lunchtime. Then hid under the shelf and got locked in overnight before helping itself to some dog food, birdseed for breakfast, and knocking stock around the store. It was only discovered after the staff opened the shop at 9 on Tuesday, and then it had to be caught with a fishing net before it could be returned to the nearby burn. Craig Williamson from the Garden Centre told the BBC Scotland News that the CCTV showed the otter coming in at about 12:30 on Monday and having a sniff and a wander. It then reappeared at 6 in the morning to have a wander and its breakfast with a munch on some dog food and birdseed. Now, for people who don't know, otters are cute. Okay, they're adorable looking creatures, but they're members of the weasel family. They are absolutely vicious. So if you see an otter, all right, don't try to capture it or anything else. Call somebody else.